But the smear campaign, now they're bringing it back up.
Yeah.
It's 2024. And with the new Jeffrey Epstein list that was released, 170 names. Now, it doesn't mean anything.
No.
Because we had a woman come forward that say, because former President Clinton has maintained all along, I was never on the island. I was never on the island. And then it turns out that he was on the island. So here's Jennifer Freeman. She's the attorney for one of the victims who said she saw Clinton on the island, but listen to the whole clip.
Being on a helicopter with him and with Maxwell. And there's another statement that she made that Clinton was on the island, which is very different than what we'd heard previously. We were heard that he wasn't on the island. Again, hard to say who to believe, of course, but he was on the island, but didn't take the bait. In other words, didn't have sexual relationships with any of the girls.
So did you get that part?
Yeah.
No sexual relationships with them. I mean, nobody's surprised that he was. Were you surprised that he went to the island?
No.
Knowing what we know about him,
No.
Come on. But they're trying to rope Trump into this. Trump, not on the island. Trump used to be friends with Epstein, and then I think he figured out who he was. This is President Trump in 2019.
I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I mean, people in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
With more on this, let's welcome to the program. And it's a pleasure to have her, Lynne Patton. She's senior advisor to President Trump. Good morning, Miss Patton. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Amy. Hi, John.
Hey, Lynn.
How are you guys?
I'm doing well.
So it's no surprise that they're trying to link President Trump with Lolita Express and with that island. Did you, with your interactions with President Trump, have you ever met Jeffrey Epstein?
I started working for President Trump in about 2008 or so. I did not. That was at the Trump Organization as a personal assistant, actually to his 3 adult children, Eric, Don, and Ivanka, who also worked at the Trump Organization. And no, I didn't at the time travel with him to and from Palm Beach like I do now. But it's well documented, like Trump said, that, Jeffrey Epstein, like many people here in Palm Beach, had, was a fixture on the social scene. He had a Mar-a-Lago membership that he paid for. He was a man with money and means. Mm-hmm. And, Trump famously kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, terminated his membership because he was, I believe, hitting on the underage daughter of a member out by the pool.
Yes.
And we just have zero tolerance for that kind of behavior. And Trump saw it early, back, by the way, when everybody in the mainstream media and Democrat Party was telling us that Epstein Island was a conspiracy theory. I don't know if people remember that, but I'm old enough to remember when the media was telling us that an island owned by this wealthy man where people went and had, illegal activity and inappropriate relationship with women was a figment of our imagination, that it just didn't exist. And, obviously now we all know that that's not true. And this, in my opinion, was a story designed to bring down President Trump at the height of 2016, and it backfired.
Right. And now they're bringing it up again because now, we've had to wait till 2016 to get the depositions released. So it's going to be a slow drip over the next few days. Do you think that's
slow drip?
Right. But this is another attempt to take him down.
Absolutely. And because it's backfiring, I just posted a clip on Instagram where the ladies of The View are actually telling people just because folks' names are on this list or mentioned in the documents doesn't mean we should be recklessly repeating them until we know more facts. I just can't imagine covering up for pedophiles. And people always say, well, Trump was on the plane. Trump was on the plane. Trump was on Epstein's plane once. It went from Palm Beach to New York City. It was basically a ride home. And never once went to the island. And if you live in Palm Beach, and I know this sounds like first world problems, you see all the time people hitching rides back and forth from Florida to New York, New York to Florida, New York to D.C., D.C. to Florida, because that's just what wealthy people do.
No, I know.
Planes like Ubers.
When I went to the West, I was at Mar-a-Lago for the screening of 2,000 Mules, and then when I was flying out of West Palm, the line for the New York plane, it was a parade of wheelchairs that went all the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I counted more than 100 wheelchairs. I'm like, that's
Really?
the half of the
Wheelchairs
flight.
and small dogs.
Yes. So that I could see that happening, and other people like Robert Jennifer. Why do I get his name wrong? Robert Kennedy Jr., who's also running as an independent. He admitted, he goes, I've been on that plane with my family a half dozen times that he can remember, but it was not about going to the island.
Right.
Absolutely. So, that would be the only thing I would clarify is that, but, if you listen to the mainstream media, you would have, you would think that Trump actually went to his island and engaged in sexual activity based on the fact that he was on his plane once.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Mainstream who? Oh, yeah. Okay. Lynn, I kind of want to pivot because, I mean, it's a way to talk about Trump, but if you guys miss the interview I had with Lynne Patton I was filling in for Sean Thompson's show, but I also have it. It's on my podcast at Black and Right Radio.
Black and Right
Radio.
I mean,
sorry, on 560. Go to 560answer.com.
Go to 560theanswer.com
and download the interview that Lynn and I did. Because Lynn, you have a very interesting story, and it's a story that, in a way, we can talk about what Trump, the Trump family, and who they are, and also expound upon who Lynne Patton is, right? Because when you look at how the media. They told us all these bad things about the Trumps, but in reality, they were talking about the Bidens, in reality, because they knew who Trump was running against, right? They knew that it was going to be Trump and Biden, so they had to put all this on, on Trump. But talk to us about your story, because it's a very fascinating story, and this was an opportunity for the Trump kids and Trump to fire you, and you would have been lost in translation many, many years ago, right?
Yes. So for people, and I'll keep it short because we went on in first 4 segments talking about this, but I started off, as I said, a personal assistant for the Trump family, rising through the ranks thanks to the opportunities they gave me to vice president, and then coming with him to the Washington, D.C. to work in the White House, and then ultimately working for Secretary Ben Carson. But you're right, that all could have come to an end in 2012, 2013, I believe. The Trump family staged an actual physical intervention for me. I grew up sort of in a privileged sort of environment in Connecticut. I went to private boarding schools and fell into, some drug use. I told myself it was social. It was not a problem. I relapsed around that time, 2011, 2012. And that's when I was working for the Trump family and obviously had a very high-pressure job. I thought that as long as I kept showing up for work and was paying my bills and not living on the street, that I was sort of a functioning, high-performing social drug user, and that's just not the case. The boys and family quickly picked up on, I guess, maybe some odd behavior, and somebody that I worked with actually told them that I was abusing cocaine. And one day I walked into work and Eric Trump pulls me in his office and he goes, Lynn, you're better than this. You don't need to do this. This is not who you are. And I immediately, and I hate to admit it, denied whatever I thought he was talking about. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not using drugs. That's crazy. I haven't used drugs in decades, blah, blah, blah. And the man started to cry right in front of me. And at that point, I just lost it. He's like, Lynn, you're like a sister to us, and we can get through this, and we're not going to let you go. We just want to work with you through this. And my parents were on the phone. He had called them. Yeah, his wife was on the phone. Well, his girlfriend at the time, but she was one of my very best friends. Laura Trump was on the phone. And then, his sister and Don Jr. later approached me and came up and offered their support. And ultimately, when their father came down the golden escalator and announced he was running for president and, asked me to go with him to Washington, D.C., it was the greatest compliment ever because, again, like you said, John, here's a family who I get asked all the time, how does a black female work for such a racist family?
Yep.
And it's just outrageous, the fact that, I said it on your show before, and as you just said, this was designed to kind of take Trump down, when I've seen nothing but the opposite. And when you look at Joe Biden and the statements he's made, at the end of the day, racists, even subconscious ones, eventually can't help themselves. They are going to slip up and they are going to say something. I've been with this family for 16 years. I have never felt uncomfortable. I have never heard them say anything, even when they didn't even realize I was standing behind them or in the room. They've never made a joke that was racially biased. They've never made a joke that was, gender biased. I mean, it's just the most
classy.
And
correct.
Lynne, you've been able to challenge them on things that are out there, as far as what you don't like about, if there's been some, right? Talk about
and
that.
I did tell them, I said, one of the things that I've always had a problem with, right or wrong, is the fact that, trying to reconcile the fact that Trump has inadvertently attracted sort of the unsolicited support of hate groups since the moment he announced he was running for president. And there is no denying that. And I've had extensive dialogue with minority Republicans, with Ivanka Trump herself in the early days of the campaign. And, I can't explain it. I really can't. But what I do know is that racist people raise racist children.
That's right.
Whether bigotry is taught, we all know this, directly or indirectly. Babies aren't born with prejudice in their hearts. And one of the things I said at the RNC convention in 2016 was that the Bible tells us you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. That's Matthew 7:15. And if you embrace those words, then you embrace Donald Trump, because he's raised 5 of the best children I've ever had the privilege to know and the honor to call friends. You're not going to read about, and trust me, the mainstream media would love to report about the bad behavior of the Trump kids like Hunter Biden, but you're never going to hear about them being arrested for a DUI or drugs or soliciting a prostitute or even shoplifting. By the way, I've never even heard rumors about them just yelling at a waitress or a flight attendant, things that happen in everyday America, and I've never seen it. In fact, they go out of their way to make sure that staff and folks who work for them at their hotels or, in the Trump organization are taken care of. And I told this story on your show the last time, the condition of selling the Trump D.C. hotel, which was one of his crown jewels and pride and joy properties. But, the endless investigations just made it not worth holding on to anymore. But one of the main conditions, in fact, the only condition Trump had before he sold it to a group of investors from Miami, was that they had to keep every single staffer that worked at that hotel, from the valets to the concierges to the bartenders to the chambermaids, and they did. And that's the kind of thing you're not going to read about in the media. You're not going to hear these stories. And it breaks my heart because, again, it's the current president who thinks that black people don't know how to find a polling station or use the internet.
Or a fax machine. Yes.
It's the current president who said Obama is articulate and clean, or that poor kids are just as bright and talented as white kids, or that he didn't want his kids going to school in a racial jungle.
Oh, God.
I mean, these are the quotes that he's made over the years, not Trump. Could you imagine if Trump said blacks are born out of wedlock without parents, without supervision, and because of that, they have not been socialized and cannot be rehabilitated? Those are Joe Biden's words when he was a senator in Delaware.
Lynne, Patton, we're so sorry we're up against the clock, but it was such a pleasure having you on. We would love to have you back. So
I'd love to be back.
Okay. Lynne Patton, Senior Advisor to President Trump, and she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When you're looking to make your business bulletproof, what comes to mind? Trustworthiness? Accuracy? Truthiness? Well, that's not even a real word. In today's competitive business landscape, considerations like trust, attention to service, accuracy, and knowledge are critical.